Welcome, my friend. Allow me to tell you the hidden story that lies beneath every coin and every banknote. A story full of unexpected turns, subtle connections, and facts that usually remain behind the scenes of our everyday financial bustle. The idea of money was born out of the inconvenience of direct barter. Imagine an ancient farmer who wanted to obtain a new clay pot, but the potter already had enough grain. There was a need for a universal intermediary, something that everyone would agree to accept in payment. At different times and in different places, the most unexpected objects took on this role. On the islands of Micronesia, for centuries it was played by enormous stone discs known as ray, some of them several meters in diameter. Their value was determined not only by size, but also by the history of their quarrying and transportation, which was often associated with mortal danger. The disc itself might never be moved at all. Ownership was simply transferred orally during important transactions, such as the conclusion of a marriage. These were, in essence, the first depositary receipts in history, where the physical object served only as a symbolic anchor for trust. In other cultures, money took the form of cowrie shells, bars of salt, livestock, feathers of rare birds, or spearheads. The choice was dictated by scarcity, durability, divisibility, and recognizability. Metals, first copper and later silver and gold, gradually displaced other forms thanks to their natural properties. They did not spoil, they could be melted and divided, and their rarity in the depths of the earth guaranteed stable value. However, even precious metals existed for a long time in the form of ingots, and every transaction was accompanied by the tedious procedure of weighing and checking purity. A brilliant simplification came from Lydia, an ancient kingdom in Asia Minor, around the 7th century before the Common Era. There, standardized coins were first minted from electrum, a natural alloy of gold and silver. They bore a royal seal that guaranteed precise weight and composition. This was a revolutionary step. Value now lay not in the metal itself, but in trust in the authority that certified it. Money was transformed from a thing into a symbol, into a social contract cast in metal. This transition from commodity money to symbolic money opened the way for an even bolder abstraction: paper banknotes. Their history began in China during the Tang Dynasty, when merchants, tired of carrying heavy copper coins, began leaving them in safekeeping with trusted parties and receiving paper receipts in return. These receipts started to circulate as an independent means of payment, since they were easier and safer to transport. In Europe, a similar practice was introduced by goldsmiths, who stored clients' gold and issued certificates in exchange. Gradually, people began to pay one another with these certificates, without withdrawing the physical gold each time. Thus, the first banks were born, and they noticed a curious pattern. Since clients almost never withdrew all their gold at the same time, it was possible to issue certificates for an amount greater than what was actually stored in the vaults. This became the basis of fractional reserve banking, a system in which most money exists only as records, while only a small share of assets serves as physical backing. It was precisely this system that gave rise to the phenomenon of interest. The bank, in essence, created new money of trust out of nothing, lending it and charging a fee in return. But here also lay an eternal threat. If all depositors were to demand their real assets back at once, the system would collapse like a house of cards. Such bank runs have repeatedly caused financial panics and crises, demonstrating how fragile a structure built entirely on collective belief can be. Belief is perhaps the most accurate word to describe the essence of modern money. The abandonment of the gold standard in the 20th century brought this idea to its logical conclusion. Today's dollar, euro, or yen is backed by nothing other than trust in the economy and the stability of the government that issues it. These are what are known as fiat money. Their value rests on universal agreement to consider them valuable, and critically, on the obligation to pay taxes in them. The state requires taxes to be paid only in its national currency, thereby creating constant and unconditional demand for it. A closed circle emerges. Money has value because the state accepts it for taxes, and the state has power because it can issue that money. Interestingly, psychologically, we perceive paper banknotes not as mere pieces of paper, but as something like magical objects. Research shows that touching money activates the same areas of the brain as receiving other rewards and can even reduce physical pain and psychological distress. In one experiment, people who were first asked to count banknotes and then immerse their hands in icy water showed a higher pain threshold and lower stress levels than those who counted ordinary sheets of paper. Money thus acts as a kind of psychological resource, symbolizing security and the ability to control one's situation. This is a deeply rooted mechanism that explains why the loss or absence of money provokes such sharp, almost instinctive anxiety, far beyond the realm of simple economic calculation. Behavioral economics, pioneered by Daniel Kahneman, revealed many irrational but systematic patterns in how we deal with money. One example is the endowment effect, which causes us to value things we already own much more highly, even if their market value has not changed. This effect prevents people from selling assets that are falling in price in a timely manner, because the thought of losing something already considered mine is too painful. Another key concept is mental accounting, in which we mentally allocate money into separate, unrelated accounts, leading to illogical decisions. A person may save on groceries to buy a cheaper version of something necessary, yet without hesitation, spend a large sum from an unexpected bonus on an expensive dinner, considering that money a gift of fate rather than part of the overall budget. A vivid illustration of irrationality is the asymmetry between the pain of losses and the pleasure of gains. Losing $1,000 causes us emotional suffering, about 2.5 times greater than the joy of finding the same amount. This innate aversion to losses pushes us to choose a guaranteed but small gain over a probable but larger one, and at the same time keeps us in risky situations in the hope of winning back what was lost. Financial markets are, in essence, a giant reflection of these collective psychological states. Greed, fear, herd instinct, and overconfidence layered onto cold mathematical models and creating unpredictable and often turbulent price dynamics. The cultural dimension of money is no less important than the economic or psychological one. Attitudes toward money, ways of spending and saving it, are deeply woven into the fabric of social norms and traditions. In some Eastern cultures, for example in Japan, the tradition of giving money in special envelopes on particular occasions, such as weddings, the birth of a child, or the New Year, is still alive. This is not merely a financial transfer, but a gesture symbolizing support, a wish for good fortune, and the strengthening of social ties. Unlike in the West, where overt discussion of personal finances is often considered taboo, in such practices, the monetary gift is ritualized and stripped of crude utilitarianism. In other societies, especially those with strong clan or tribal structures, a person's wealth directly determines social status and obligations to the community. A wealthy member of the tribe cannot simply accumulate riches. Generosity, the organization of feasts, and the distribution of gifts are expected. This practice, known as potlatch among the indigenous peoples of the northwestern coast of North America, at first glance seems like irrational waste. Yet from the perspective of social dynamics, it is brilliant. Wealth is converted into prestige, power, and social debts that can be called in later. This stands in sharp contrast to the Protestant ethic described by Max Weber, in which capital accumulation and an ascetic lifestyle were considered virtues in themselves and signs of divine favor. Thus, money is never neutral. It always carries a cultural code, a system of values and ideas about right and wrong. that varies from one society to another. With the development of technology, the nature of money continues to change radically. The digital age has definitively separated the payment function from any physical carrier. Card payments, online banking, electronic wallets are all stages in the transition toward money as pure information, a set of bits and bytes on servers. This process reached a new stage with the emergence of cryptocurrencies such as Bitcoin. Their fundamental difference lies in the fact that they do not require trust in a central issuer, whether a state or a bank. Instead, trust is provided by a decentralized computer network and cryptographic algorithms. The blockchain technology underlying them is a public and immutable ledger of all transactions, stored simultaneously on thousands of computers around the world. This makes the system highly resistant to censorship and fraud. However, Bitcoin and similar currencies have raised new questions. Their value is extremely volatile, as it is determined almost exclusively by supply and demand, rather than by ties to the real economy. They consume enormous amounts of electricity for mining, the process of creating new blocks and confirming transactions. And, most paradoxically, the proclaimed ideology of decentralization and freedom from state control often in practice results in a high concentration of wealth in the hands of early investors and the need to use centralized exchanges to convert into fiat money. Nevertheless, the very phenomenon of cryptocurrencies has demonstrated that the concept of money can evolve further, and that technology is capable of creating new, alternative systems of trust that challenge traditional financial institutions. History offers many curious and instructive examples of how monetary systems can spiral out of control, leading to absurd and catastrophic consequences. One of the most striking cases is the hyperinflation of Weimar Germany in the early 1920s. Defeat in the First World War and enormous reparations forced the government to print money in unlimited quantities to cover its debts. The result was economic collapse, with prices doubling every few hours. People were paid wages twice a day and immediately rushed to shops to buy anything at all before their money turned to dust. Photographs from that time are well known. Children building houses out of bundles of banknotes, and housewives feeding stoves with money because it was cheaper than firewood. This tragedy had far-reaching political consequences, undermining faith in democratic institutions and preparing the ground for the rise of the Nazis. Another, more peaceful example of a monetary anomaly is the appearance of silver certificates in the United States at the end of the 19th century. These were banknotes that could, in principle, be exchanged for physical silver on demand. Over time, however, this option became purely theoretical, and the certificates circulated just like ordinary dollars. When the Treasury decided to withdraw them from circulation in the 1960s, it turned out that many citizens were not even aware of their special status, simply regarding them as money. These stories show how fragile the boundary can be between sound and devalued money, and how quickly habit and trust can turn an absurd situation into a norm, only for that illusion to collapse just as quickly. Money is also deeply intertwined with the concept of time, a connection reflected in such fundamental financial ideas as interest and discounting. Interest is, in essence, the price of time. Compensation for the fact that a lender forgoes the ability to spend money now and transfers that opportunity to a borrower. Discounting, in turn, is the mechanism that allows us to compare the value of money today with its value in the future. Psychologically, people tend toward what is known as hyperbolic discounting. We greatly overvalue small but immediate rewards compared to larger but delayed ones. This helps explain why saving for retirement or a major purchase is so difficult, while impulsive spending is so easy. This cognitive bias is actively exploited in marketing. Offers such as buy now, pay later, or small immediate discounts are attractive precisely because they ease our internal conflict between I want it now and it will be more beneficial later. It is interesting that the ability to delay gratification demonstrated in the famous Stanford marshmallow experiment, where children were offered a choice between one sweet now or two if they waited, correlates with success in adult life, not by itself, but as a marker of a broader capacity for self-control and planning in a supportive environment. In this sense, our relationship with money is largely a litmus test of how we relate to time, to our future selves, and to our ability to manage desire. Financial literacy is, at its core, training in more sober and thoughtful time planning, overcoming the instinctive preference for immediate rewards. Beyond psychology and culture, money also has a very tangible, tactile dimension that continues to influence us even in the digital age. The design of banknotes and coins is a whole science that combines security features, ergonomics, and symbolism. Watermarks, holograms, microprinting, and security threads are all intended to make counterfeiting more difficult, but they also create a sense of quality and reliability. The size, weight, and composition of coins often change with their value. More valuable coins are usually heavier and larger, which corresponds to our intuitive logic. Banknotes almost always feature portraits of national heroes, rulers, or symbolic architectural monuments. This is not mere decoration, but a way of reinforcing national identity and legitimizing authority. It is noteworthy that United States dollars contain numerous Masonic symbols, such as the all-seeing eye and the unfinished pyramid, which refer to Enlightenment ideals on which American statehood was built. The euro, by contrast, deliberately avoided depicting specific individuals in order to emphasize the pan-European nature of the currency, instead using stylized bridges, windows, and arches as symbols of openness and cooperation. Even color matters. The green color of the United States dollar was chosen deliberately, since in the 19th century green pigments were relatively durable and rare, making counterfeiting more difficult. Tactile features are important as well. People with visual impairments rely on special markings on coins and differences in banknote sizes, making money a more inclusive tool. On a planetary scale, the behavior of money follows complex and often non-obvious laws. A vivid example is the so-called Cantillon effect, named after an 18th century economist. He observed that new money entering an economy does not spread evenly, like water poured into a vessel. It always enters at specific points, through government spending or bank credit to particular sectors, and then spreads outward in waves. Those who receive the new money first, such as banks or major government contractors, can spend it at old prices. As the money circulates, demand for goods and services rises, leading to higher prices. Those who receive the money last, such as public sector employees or pensioners on fixed incomes, face already higher prices, while their incomes have risen less or with a delay. In this way, inflation caused by money creation acts as a hidden tax that redistributes wealth from late recipients to early ones. Another global phenomenon is the role of reserve currencies. The United States dollar functions as the world's primary reserve currency, in which much of international trade, lending, and foreign exchange reserves are denominated. This gives the United States a unique privilege: the ability to finance its deficits at the expense of the rest of the world, simply by issuing more dollars, since there will always be external demand for them. At the same time, this role carries great responsibility because the monetary policy of the United States Central Bank influences economic conditions across the globe. When it raises interest rates to cool the domestic economy, this can trigger capital outflows from developing countries and provoke financial crises there, as has happened many times in history. From a neurobiological perspective, financial decision-making is a complex dance between ancient emotional regions of the brain, such as the amygdala, and newer rational structures, such as the prefrontal cortex. When we see the prospect of quick profit, the reward system associated with the neurotransmitter dopamine is activated. This creates feelings of excitement and anticipation that can overshadow rational risk assessment. This effect underlies get-rich-quick schemes and aggressive advertising. Uncertainty, which often accompanies financial decisions, activates the insular cortex, a brain region associated with disgust and physical pain. This is why investing in volatile assets can cause genuine physical discomfort. On the other hand, acts of generosity, such as donating money to charity, activate the mesolimbic pathway associated with pleasure, sometimes even more strongly than spending money on oneself. This points to a deep evolutionary foundation for cooperation and altruism, which paradoxically are also connected to monetary behavior. Understanding these neurobiological foundations helps explain why simply knowing that one should save for a rainy day or diversify a portfolio often does not work in practice. Rational arguments lose to immediate emotional impulses. Effective financial strategies, therefore, need to take this duality of human nature into account, for example, by automating savings, so that the decision is made once, rationally, and then executed without daily emotional interference, or by setting clear, predefined rules for investing. The shift from physical to digital money might seem as though it should erase this material, tactile connection. Paradoxically, it has merely shifted the emphasis to other, even subtler forms of perception. Interfaces of banking applications and payment systems are carefully designed to evoke feelings of security, control, and even pleasure. The sound of a successful payment, smooth transfer animations, green confirmation check marks all serve as digital equivalents of the satisfying rustle of banknotes. Neuromarketing specialists know that cashless payments, being instant and impersonal, reduce the so-called pain of paying, which can encourage more frequent and spontaneous spending. Unlike the act of physically counting and handing over cash, pressing a button on a screen separates the purchase from the feeling of losing a resource. This phenomenon has deep evolutionary roots. Our brains react much more strongly to concrete, visible losses than to abstract changes in a digital balance. Interestingly, some modern financial applications attempt to restore a sense of materiality by visualizing spending as shrinking circles or progress bars, helping users better feel their expenses. In this way, the design of digital financial services becomes a continuous search for balance between convenience, security, and preserving at least some sense of connection to the real resources a person is managing. Money, as the circulatory system of society, inevitably becomes a powerful instrument of social control and behavioral shaping. One of the oldest examples is the practice of coin debasement. When a state in need of funds secretly reduced the content of precious metal in coins while keeping their face value unchanged, it effectively carried out a hidden confiscation of wealth from the population. People, noticing that new coins were lighter or less resonant, began withdrawing older, full-bodied coins from circulation, following the principle later known as Gresham's Law. Bad money drives out good. They melted the old coins down or hid them away. The state gained short-term financial relief, but at the cost of undermining trust in its currency for many years. In the modern world, similar mechanisms have become more subtle. Credit ratings, scoring systems, and transaction histories all form a kind of digital dossier that determines a person's access to financial resources. In some countries, for example China, social credit systems are being introduced in which financial behavior, such as timely bill payments or loan repayments, directly affects a citizen's social rating, opening or closing access to certain services and opportunities. Even charity and welfare systems can contain elements of control, encouraging some patterns of behavior while discouraging others. Money has never been a neutral intermediary. It is always embedded in a specific structure of power and serves as one of its key levers, capable of granting opportunities and restricting freedom at the same time, often subtly and without the individual even noticing. A fascinating aspect of money is its connection to language and thought. Financial terminology is saturated with metaphors borrowed from many areas of life. We speak of liquidity, derived from the Latin word for something fluid and flowing, of cash and cashless forms. Money is something one can physically hold, of frozen accounts or inflation, from the Latin word meaning swelling. These metaphors are not mere ornaments of speech. They shape how we perceive economic processes. Thinking of money as a liquid creates an image of something that must circulate and flow, with stagnation being harmful. The very concept of a market originates from the image of a physical place of trade, where buyer and seller meet face to face. Even though today's global markets are mostly screens filled with streaming data, the language of investing is full of aggressive and military terms. Bulls and bears, capturing market share, defending price levels. This reflects a perception of the economy as a battlefield. It is also interesting how different languages encode attitudes toward money in idioms. In Russian, there is the expression, "money does not smell," which traces back to the Roman Emperor Vespasian, who imposed a tax on public latrines. In English, people say, "time is money," reflecting the Protestant fusion of time, labor, and capital. These linguistic features show how a nation's cultural experience crystallizes in its attitude toward finance, and how this attitude is transmitted through language to future generations, forming basic assumptions. If we step away from human society, we can find that prototypes of monetary systems exist in nature as well. Ethologists studying animal behavior describe phenomena that strikingly resemble trade and credit. In experiments with some species of primates, such as capuchin monkeys, researchers have observed an understanding of fair exchange. Monkeys trained to trade tokens for food refused to work or protested when they saw another receiving a tastier reward for the same coin, a stone disc. Among crows, complex social behavior has been observed, including delayed reciprocal altruism. One bird may help another obtain food, remembering that the other shared in the past. This resembles a system of social debts. Bees have their own kind of labor currency. Information about the location of flowering fields, which a scout bee shares with the hive through the famous waggle dance. The richer the source, the longer and more energetic the dance, mobilizing more workers. These biological analogies suggest that the roots of exchange, reciprocity, and value assessment run very deep in evolutionary history. Money, therefore, is not a purely human invention. It is a cultural and technological extension of ancient biological impulses toward cooperation, resource distribution, and the accounting of social obligations. Returning to the human world, it is worth considering the phenomenon of collecting money, numismatics, and notaphily. This hobby, on the one hand, treats money as artifacts of history and art, and on the other hand, functions as a kind of parallel economic system. The value of a collectible coin or banknote is determined not by its face value or purchasing power, but by a whole range of other factors: rarity, condition, historical context, beauty of design, and printing or minting errors. Some coins are prized because of so-called minting defects, such as misaligned dies, incomplete strikes, or the use of blanks intended for another coin. Objects that were once considered flaws become unique and valuable items in the collector's world. There is an entire market of auctions, catalogs, and expert assessments that operates according to its own laws of supply and demand. Interestingly, this market is subject to the same psychological effects as financial markets. Bubbles, fashions for certain themes, speculation, and herd behavior. Collecting money vividly demonstrates how an object created for one function, to serve as a medium of exchange, can completely lose that function and acquire a new value within a system of cultural and emotional preferences. This once again proves that the essence of money lies not in its material, but in the meaning a community assigns to it. The influence of money on individual psychology extends even into the realm of moral judgment and ethical behavior. Numerous studies demonstrate what is known as the money priming effect. When people are reminded of money, for example by seeing images of banknotes or holding coins, they often begin to behave more independently, but also more selfishly. They are less likely to ask for help or to help others, prefer working alone rather than in teams, and tend to keep greater physical distance from those around them. On one hand, this can be interpreted as the activation of a mindset focused on achievement and self-sufficiency. On the other, it reflects a weakening of social bonds and pro-social behavior. Moreover, the mere presence of money or thoughts about it can make a person less sensitive to physical and social pain, both their own and that of others. This creates a peculiar ethical paradox. An instrument designed to facilitate cooperation and exchange can, in certain psychological contexts, act as a barrier, reinforcing feelings of isolation and self-reliance. Of course, these effects are situational and do not mean that wealthy people are less moral. They indicate that the symbolism of money itself can temporarily shift our psychological orientation from collective to individualistic, an important insight for understanding human behavior in economic contexts. When money is viewed as a technology, its role in globalization cannot be ignored. Standardized systems of value became a universal language that allowed civilizations separated by vast distances and cultural barriers to trade and cooperate. The Silk Road was not only a route for goods, but also an artery for the spread of monetary systems. Byzantine solidi, Arab dinars, and Chinese yuan could be found in the purses of merchants in the most remote caravanserais. During the age of great geographical discoveries, the flow of precious metals from the New World into Europe caused inflation on such a scale that economists refer to the period as the price revolution. This impoverished some social groups, such as land-owning nobility with fixed incomes, and enriched others, such as merchants and bankers, radically transforming Europe's social structure. In the 19th century, the adoption of the gold standard was an attempt to create the first truly global monetary system, in which exchange rates were tied to fixed quantities of gold. This simplified international trade and investment, but also made the world economy vulnerable to shocks in key markets, ultimately exacerbating the Great Depression. Today, the international payment system, known as the Society for Worldwide Interbank Financial Telecommunication, while not a currency, functions as the nervous system of global finance, allowing payment instructions to be transmitted between banks in different countries within seconds. Disconnecting a country from this system becomes a powerful financial weapon, demonstrating that in the modern world, control over financial flows is often more important than control over territory or resources. Money as an instrument of globalization has also created a reverse side: vulnerability to global crises. Economic shocks rarely remain local. Like a virus, they spread through financial channels. A vivid example is the Asian financial crisis of 1997 to 1998, which began with the devaluation of the Thai baht. Speculative capital that had previously flooded into Southeast Asia suddenly reversed direction, collapsing currencies, stock markets, and entire regional economies. The cause was not only macroeconomic imbalances, but also market psychology. Panic that began in one place triggered a chain reaction. Investors, without distinguishing between individual countries, withdrew funds en masse from all so-called emerging markets, following herd instinct. This crisis showed how tightly intertwined modern finances are, and how quickly a flight to safety can deprive even fundamentally sound enterprises of liquidity. Interestingly, Such shocks often lead to a rethinking of development models. After that crisis, many Asian countries accumulated massive foreign exchange reserves as a safety cushion against future turmoil, fundamentally altering the global balance of financial power. Against the backdrop of these gigantic flows of capital, there exists another world of money, largely hidden from most people's view: the shadow economy. By some estimates, its scale reaches up to 1/3 of global gross domestic product. It includes not only criminal activity, but also unregistered small legal businesses, barter exchanges, and cash-based work carried out without formal contracts. This economy lives by its own rules. Cash, especially large denomination banknotes, is widely used within it as the most anonymous instrument. For this very reason, in 2016, the European Central Bank stopped issuing the 500 euro banknote in order to make money laundering and tax evasion more difficult. In the shadow economy, trust is not based on state guarantees, but on personal ties, the threat of violence, or reputation. Sometimes it even gives rise to its own currencies, such as the Hawala system in the Middle East and South Asia. This is an informal network of trust-based transfers built on the honor of brokers and the absence of any physical movement of money across borders. Such systems demonstrate remarkable resilience and efficiency in conditions where access to official banking channels is limited. They remind us that money is, first and foremost, a social contract, and that this contract can exist outside the framework of state regulation, relying instead on alternative systems of authority and control. When viewing money through the lens of history, it is impossible not to note its role in great geographical and scientific discoveries. The financing of the expeditions of Columbus or Magellan was not charity, but risky investment by the Spanish and Portuguese crowns, as well as private merchants who expected access to new trade routes and sources of spices, silver, and gold. It was profit, not curiosity alone, that drove progress. Later, during the Industrial Revolution, the invention of the joint stock company and the stock exchange made it possible to accumulate enormous amounts of capital for the construction of railways, canals, and factories. Investors buying shares were not merely acquiring a stake in a business, but a claim on part of its future income. This simple idea of risk-sharing and raising funds from a broad circle of people became a powerful engine of economic growth. Yet it also gave rise to the first stock market bubbles, such as the famous tulip mania in 17th century Holland, when prices for rare tulip bulbs soared to incredible heights and then collapsed. It is important to understand that the bubble burst not because tulips suddenly ceased to be beautiful, but because they ceased to be a liquid asset. At the moment of panic, it became impossible to find a buyer at the previous price. This lesson has been repeated many times, from the collapse of the South Sea Company in England to the dot-com crash at the end of the 1990s. The mechanism is always similar: frenzied demand based not on fundamental value, but on expectations of endless growth and easy profits from resale. In the context of personal finance, the phenomenon of so-called mental money or windfall gains is particularly interesting. These are unexpected, accidental incomes, such as lottery winnings, inheritances, or large tax refunds. Psychologically, people tend to treat such money far more lightly than funds earned through hard work. It is often spent on status-driven, emotional purchases or risky investments that would never be considered for savings accumulated bit by bit. Studies of the fate of large lottery winnings are often bleak. After several years, many winners find themselves in worse financial condition than before due to poor capital management, pressure from their social circle, and a loss of motivation to work. This vividly illustrates the difference between wealth as a balance on an account and financial literacy as the ability to manage that balance. On the other hand, small but regular financial gifts or bonuses, if perceived as part of income rather than as easy money, can instead encourage prudent planning. This paradox shows that our financial behavior depends not only on the amount, but on how we categorize it in our minds, on which mental shelf we place it. Money is also a powerful marker of social inequality, and this inequality has not only an economic, but also a spatial dimension. In cities around the world, a phenomenon known as financial segregation is unfolding. Neighborhoods with high living costs and expensive infrastructure are separated from deprived areas, not only physically, but financially as well. Poor districts may lack bank branches, yet be saturated with pawn shops, payday loan outlets charging exorbitant interest, and stores selling goods on installment plans at inflated prices. This creates a poverty trap. Lack of access to affordable financial services forces people to use expensive ones, further worsening their economic position. At the opposite pole are offshore zones and closed private banks, where wealth becomes invisible to society and to tax authorities. The existence of such parallel financial universes undermines the principle of fairness in the tax system and, according to research by the French economist Thomas Piketty, contributes to the growth of inequality, as capital grows faster than the economy as a whole. Thus, money does not merely reflect social status. It actively constructs and reinforces it, creating self-reproducing cycles of privilege or deprivation that can last for generations. Moving from macroeconomic processes to the micro level, we can observe how money functions in everyday rituals and superstitions. In almost every culture, there are signs and customs associated with attracting wealth. In China and many Southeast Asian countries, so-called money trees are popular. Talismans in the form of plants with coins instead of leaves, believed to activate the wealth zone according to feng shui principles. In Russian tradition, there was a custom of placing a coin under the corner of a house being built for wealth, or lending money during the new moon so that it would return with profit. In Japan, there is the ritual of omotenashi, the art of giving money in envelopes in a special, aesthetic way that expresses respect and wishes for prosperity. These practices, which may seem irrational, perform an important psychological function. They reduce anxiety associated with uncertainty about the financial future and give a person an illusion of control over money flows. They are also a form of positive programming, directing attention toward the goal of increasing resources. From a practical standpoint, even a simple ritual of budgeting or counting cash in the evening can be seen as a modern, rational analog of such superstitions. An action that structures chaos and instills confidence. An interesting aspect of money is its connection to time through the concept of depreciation. This is an economic term describing the process by which the value of a physical asset, such as a machine or a car, is gradually transferred to the cost of the goods produced with its help as it wears out. In a broader philosophical sense, depreciation reminds us that most material things we spend money on lose value over time. Exceptions include so-called growth assets, antiques, works of art, or collectible wines, which may appreciate, but this requires deep expertise and carries risks. This simple fact prompts reflection on the opportunity cost of money. By spending it on a depreciating asset, we permanently lose the chance to invest it in something that could generate income or preserve purchasing power. This is why financial literacy places so much emphasis on the distinction between liabilities, things that take money out of your pocket, and assets, things that put money into your pocket. Understanding this principle, popularized by Robert Kiyosaki, is a cornerstone of building personal capital. It forces us to evaluate each major purchase not in terms of immediate desire, but in terms of its long-term impact on well-being. Modern money is increasingly becoming data, and financial systems are turning into a form of information technology infrastructure. This creates new professions and new threats. Cybercrime aimed at stealing funds has reached industrial scale. Phishing, ransomware, and hacks of cryptocurrency exchanges are all realities of the digital financial age. At the same time, technology offers tools for protection. Blockchain technology, as already mentioned, provides transparency and immutability of records. Biometric authentication using fingerprints or facial recognition adds another layer of security. Artificial intelligence analyzes transaction patterns in real time to detect fraudulent activity. For example, when a card normally used to buy groceries in one's home city is suddenly used to purchase electronics in another country. Interestingly, these systems sometimes fail, blocking legitimate but unusual transactions, illustrating how the pursuit of security can conflict with convenience. The future likely lies in the development of so-called central bank digital currencies, digital analogs of national currencies issued directly by central banks. They promise to combine the speed and convenience of digital payments with the reliability and sovereignty of state money, potentially reshaping the entire architecture of the financial system, including the role of commercial banks. Money is inseparably linked to ecology as well. The production of cash is resource-intensive. Banknotes require cotton, water, inks, and energy. Coins require the extraction of metals, their smelting, and transportation. Cashless payments also have a carbon footprint, as massive data centers processing transactions consume enormous amounts of electricity. Bitcoin, as already noted, is criticized precisely for the excessive energy consumption of its mining process. In response, concepts such as green finance and investing based on environmental, social, and governance principles are emerging. Investors increasingly allocate funds not merely to profitable companies, but to those demonstrating responsibility toward the planet and society. Green bonds are being issued, with proceeds directed toward financing environmental projects. In this way, money flows begin to function as a tool for influencing corporate behavior, channeling capital toward sustainable development. This represents a new stage in the evolution of money. From a neutral medium of exchange, it is becoming an instrument of voting for a desired future, where profitability is balanced by ethical and environmental considerations. When money is viewed through the lens of art, it becomes clear that it is itself a powerful artistic object. Artists use real banknotes to create installations, collages, and sculptures, commenting on consumerism, inequality, or the futility of the purely material. For example, the artist Chris Levi often works with cut and interwoven banknotes, creating intricate patterns that both celebrate and neutralize the value of the note as a means of payment. Others produce giant replicas of coins from unexpected materials or stage performances centered on their destruction. In literature, money frequently appears not merely as background, but as an active force shaping the destinies of characters. From Balzac's Lost Illusions, where a talented poet is forced to sell his gift in order to survive in Paris, to Bret Easton Ellis's American Psycho, where violence and emptiness are directly tied to the cult of status and consumption. Money reveals both the darkest and the brightest sides of human nature. These artistic interventions matter because they allow society to step back from a purely utilitarian view of finance and to see its symbolic, cultural, and even spiritual weight, something that everyday financial bustle often obscures. Reflecting on money as a cultural code makes it impossible to avoid the theme of gift and debt, which form a fundamental alternative to purely market-based exchange. The French sociologist Marcel Mauss, in his essay, The Gift, showed that in archaic societies, giving was never a selfless act. It created an invisible but binding connection, a debt of gratitude that had to be repaid over time, perhaps in a different form. This cycle of giving and returning served as the cement of social bonds, holding together tribes, families, and alliances. Echoes of this logic persist in the modern world. A generous gift to a colleague or help offered to a friend in difficulty creates informal obligations that, while not expressed in money, still carry social value. Breaking this unspoken contract by refusing to reciprocate or acknowledge gratitude, can rupture relationships. Introducing money into such relationships, for example by directly paying a friend for help, often damages them, translating a subtle social bond into a cold transaction. This constant tension between the logic of the gift and the logic of the market shapes many everyday dilemmas. Whether to pay parents for their help, whether to tip a close acquaintance in their own cafe, or how to thank a doctor for special attention. Here, money acts as a powerful translator that can either facilitate interaction or destroy its delicate social fabric. This dual nature of money is especially vivid in the phenomenon of microcredit, which gained global prominence through the work of Muhammad Yunus and his Grameen Bank. The idea of providing small loans to the poorest people, especially women in developing countries, without collateral but under collective responsibility of a borrowing group, revolutionized development thinking. It demonstrated that money, when embedded in social ties such as group solidarity and mutual oversight, can become a tool of powerful social mobilization and poverty reduction. The success of microcredit rested on the use of not only financial capital, but social capital as well. Over time, however, as the model was replicated by commercial structures, it sometimes degenerated. In pursuit of profit, some microfinance institutions began issuing loans without adequate assessment, leading to excessive indebtedness among borrowers. What had been an instrument of empowerment turned into a form of bondage, illustrating that even the most well-intentioned financial innovations can be distorted when the social component is displaced by purely commercial logic. The history of microcredit is a miniature version of the eternal story of money. Its power depends on context and on the human relationships it serves, cooperation and development, or exploitation and alienation. Delving into psychology reveals another intriguing paradox: the relationship between money and happiness. Research consistently shows that rising income does increase life satisfaction, but only up to a certain point. This threshold is generally the level that allows comfortable fulfillment of basic needs: housing, food, safety, healthcare, education, and provides a sense of financial security. Beyond this point, further increases in wealth correlate weakly with happiness. Moreover, pursuing money as an end in itself often reduces quality of life through chronic stress, lack of time for relationships and hobbies, and burnout. What truly affects well-being is not the absolute sum in one's account, but the feeling of control over one's financial life, freedom of choice, and the ability to spend money on experiences, travel, learning, time with loved ones, rather than only on material goods. Studies show that money spent on experiences brings longer-lasting and deeper satisfaction than money spent on things. Experiences become part of our identity. They are pleasant to remember and to share, whereas the novelty of material purchases quickly fades due to habituation. From the psychology of happiness, financial literacy therefore involves not only saving and investing, but also spending consciously, directing resources toward areas that genuinely enrich lived experience. Money also possesses a kind of memory and biography, especially visible in the world of collecting and in certain legal concepts. In the United States, for instance, there is a legal doctrine known as tracing, which allows, in cases of fraud or bankruptcy, the tracking of specific funds through chains of transactions in order to return them to their rightful owner. This is possible because banking systems record the history of each sum. On a more everyday level, we often assign emotional value to money depending on its source. Hard-earned money may be valued subjectively more than money received through inheritance or chance. There is even the notion of tainted money, not only in a criminal sense, but in a moral one. For example, income from activities that conflict with a person's values. Dealing with such money can create cognitive dissonance. Conversely, money given with love or earned through meaningful work carries a positive charge. This subjective aura influences our decisions. We are often more willing to donate to charity a small amount found by chance than the same amount from a salary. These subtle psychological nuances demonstrate that money is never a purely abstract accounting unit for humans. It always bears the invisible imprint of its origin and previous holders. Considering the evolution of money inevitably raises the question of its future. One of the most discussed trends is the gradual move away from cash, already underway in countries such as Sweden or China. A cashless society promises major advantages: reduced shadow circulation, more efficient tax administration, and greater convenience and security for consumers. Yet it also has a darker side. Complete digital tracking of all transactions creates potential risks to privacy, giving states and corporations unprecedented capacity for financial surveillance. Such systems can also exclude vulnerable groups, the elderly, the poor, and those without access to bank accounts or digital devices. In the event of technical failures or cyber attacks, a fully digital economy could be paralyzed. For these reasons, the future likely lies not in the disappearance of cash, but in the coexistence of multiple forms of money. Central bank digital currencies, private electronic money, crypto assets, and possibly local or corporate tokens. The key challenge will be ensuring interoperability, the ability of these different systems to interact seamlessly, creating a unified yet diverse financial ecosystem in which individuals retain freedom of choice in how they store and move value. Money plays a critical role in demographic processes as well. Pension levels, social insurance systems, and family support programs are all financial instruments that directly influence birth rates, life expectancy, and migration flows. For example, the introduction of maternity capital in Russia in 2007 became a powerful stimulus for higher birth rates, especially for second and third children. At the same time, pension systems based on intergenerational solidarity, where contributions from the working population fund current retirees, face severe strain as populations age. This pushes many countries to raise retirement ages and introduce funded components. Notably, money itself can shape perceptions of lifespan. Having significant savings or passive income gives people a sense that they can afford to live longer, adopt healthier lifestyles, and invest in medical care. Conversely, financial insecurity is a strong source of chronic stress, which has been shown to shorten life expectancy. Thus, money flows managed at both state and personal levels literally shape the biographies of entire generations, determining how many people are born, how long they live, and the quality of those lives. One of the most complex and subtle aspects of money is its role in creativity and intellectual work. On the one hand, the history of art is full of examples where masterpieces were created through the patronage of wealthy benefactors. From the Medici family supporting Michelangelo to Sergei Shchukin assembling a collection of French modernist painting, money gave artists the material freedom to create. On the other hand, there is a persistent myth that true art must be free from commerce, that selling one's work corrupts talent. The truth, as often, lies somewhere in between. Psychological research shows that external monetary rewards, known as extrinsic motivation, can undermine intrinsic motivation, genuine interest and pleasure in the process itself. This effect is particularly strong in creative and cognitive tasks. When someone writes books or pursues science solely for fees or grants, the quality of their work may decline. The ideal financial model for creativity appears to be a basic level of security that removes anxiety about survival without turning creative work into routine production of marketable output. This is why institutions such as scholarships, grants, and artist residencies are so effective. They provide a financial cushion while preserving freedom in the choice of themes and methods. Money is also a powerful tool for shaping identity, especially in a consumer society. Marketers understood long ago that we do not buy mere products, but symbols. Branded clothing, expensive cars, prestigious neighborhoods, all of these are ways of communicating with the outside world. Signals of belonging to a particular social group, of taste, success, and values. At the end of the 19th century, the sociologist Thorstein Veblen introduced the concept of conspicuous consumption, spending aimed primarily at demonstrating wealth and social status rather than satisfying utilitarian needs. In the 21st century, this demonstration has become more subtle. It may no longer be a gigantic mansion, but the ability to travel to exotic places, attend highly specialized courses, or buy environmentally friendly product is at a high price. Such consumption of experiences and consumption of knowledge is also a form of social positioning. The danger lies in the fact that the external, demonstrative side of money can replace a person's inner goals and values. One begins to earn not in order to live well, but in order for others to think that one lives well. The gap between this public image and real feelings often leads to existential emptiness and a sense of a golden cage. Recognizing this trap is the first step toward returning money to its instrumental role, rather than allowing it to define who we are. Inheritance is a moment when money reveals with particular force its dual nature as both a material asset and a symbol of relationships. Wills often become battlegrounds for unspoken grievances, hidden jealousy, and unpaid moral debts. Here, money ceases to be just money. It turns into a material embodiment of love, recognition, or rejection by the deceased. In many cultures, there are complex rituals linking money and death. For example, placing coins in a coffin to pay the passage to the afterlife, as with Karen's obol in the ancient tradition, or giving alms for the repose of the soul. These rituals help the living cope with guilt or fulfill a final duty to the dead. In the modern world, end-of-life financial planning, writing a will, arranging insurance, setting up trusts, is not only a practical step, but also an act of care for loved ones, sparing them additional burdens and conflicts at a time of grief. Thus, even at the final threshold, money remains not a neutral resource, but an active participant in human drama, linking generations and carrying the heavy weight of unrealized emotions and unfulfilled promises. In such moments, its true value is measured not in numbers, but in how peacefully or painfully it allows a story to end. Moving from deeply personal aspects to the global scale, it is worth examining how money functions as an instrument of international diplomacy and soft power. Economic sanctions, which involve targeted restrictions on financial operations with a particular country, company, or individual, have become one of the main tools of foreign policy in the 21st century. Their mechanism is simple. By depriving a target of access to the global financial system, freezing accounts, cutting off payment channels, banning transactions. The initiators of sanctions seek to change behavior without resorting to military force. The effectiveness of sanctions is widely debated. On the one hand, they can undermine an economy, trigger currency devaluation, and raise prices, creating pressure on ruling elites. On the other hand, they often strengthen internal cohesion around the authorities through a besieged fortress mentality, stimulate import substitution and the shadow economy, and place the main burden on ordinary citizens rather than on the intended targets. Sanctions also reshape global financial flows, forcing countries to seek alternative settlement systems, as seen when states develop national financial messaging networks to reduce dependence on existing ones. In this way, money on the geopolitical stage becomes a weapon whose use has complex, multi-layered, and often unpredictable consequences, forming new economic alliances while breaking old ties. Alongside the use of money as a weapon, an opposite process is unfolding: its democratization through financial technology. The revolution in financial technologies over recent decades has drastically lowered barriers to access to financial services. Mobile payment systems have allowed millions of people without bank accounts to transfer money, pay for services, and even take microloans using a simple phone. This is not merely a matter of convenience, it is a transformation of social structures. In some regions, such systems have enabled women in rural areas to receive payments directly, increasing their financial independence and influence within the family. Crowdfunding platforms allow creators and entrepreneurs to raise funds directly from communities, bypassing traditional intermediaries such as banks or publishers. Algorithmic investment advisors offer portfolio management for minimal fees, making capital management accessible to the middle class. However, this democratization has a reverse side. Easy access to credit products through applications can lead to rising debt among inexperienced users. Algorithmic lending based on large data sets risks reproducing and amplifying existing social biases if discriminatory patterns are embedded in the data. As with all new technologies, financial technology becomes a battleground between the potential for empowerment and the risks of new forms of exploitation and control. In a mysterious and intriguing way, money is linked to one of humanity's oldest fascinations: gambling. Casinos, lotteries, and betting markets form a special economic universe in which money temporarily loses its function as a medium of exchange and becomes purely an object of risk and chance. The psychology of gambling exploits fundamental cognitive biases. One is the gambler's fallacy, the belief that past random events influence future ones, such as assuming that after a series of red outcomes on a roulette wheel, black must come next. Another is the illusion of control, in which people believe they can influence purely random outcomes through rituals or winning systems. Casinos carefully design their environments to reinforce these illusions. The absence of clocks and windows erases the sense of time. Free drinks lower inhibitions, and small, intermittent wins feed the dopamine reward system, encouraging continued play. The design of slot machines themselves, bright colors, sound effects, the sensation of almost winning, is the product of deep neuropsychological research. In gambling contexts, money is no longer a tool for acquiring goods, but the object of desire itself, its value exaggerated by atmosphere and artificially induced excitement. This is a pure example of how an environment can transform our perception of money, separating it from real purchasing power and turning it into a symbol of mythical, instantaneous transformation of fate. Money also has a distinctive sound dimension. Historically, the ringing of coins was an important indicator of authenticity and quality. Gold and silver coins produce a characteristic, long, clear ring when struck together, while counterfeits made from cheap alloys produce a dull, short sound. In China, there was even a practice of sound testing, where a coin was dropped onto a stone slab and its composition judged by the sound. Today, this sensory experience is largely lost, replaced by new acoustic markers. Notifications of funds arriving in an account, the click of a payment terminal after a successful transaction, the sound of a receipt printing. These are all auditory confirmations of financial actions that subconsciously influence our perception of the process. Marketers and interface designers devote great attention to creating satisfying sound feedback that evokes feelings of certainty, completion, and even mild pleasure. In investment contexts, noise refers to the excess of information and commentary that interferes with sound decision-making. Thus, the acoustic landscape surrounding money, from the ancient ring of metal to modern digital signals, is an integral part of its social life, shaping the emotional tone of our interactions with the financial world. When money is viewed as a social institution, it is impossible to avoid the topic of taxes, the reverse side of state-issued currency. Taxes are the price society pays for public goods, security, infrastructure, education, healthcare. Yet beyond this utilitarian function, taxes have always been instruments of social engineering. Progressive income taxes are designed to reduce inequality. Excise taxes on tobacco, alcohol, or sugar aim to discourage socially harmful consumption. Tax benefits for families with children, mortgage borrowers, or technology companies are meant to stimulate desired behavior. There is also an interesting psychological phenomenon associated with taxes. People tend to perceive them as an irretrievable loss, which fuels tax avoidance even when they generally support the purposes for which taxes are spent. Tax systems based on automatic withholding at the source provoke less resistance than systems requiring individuals to pay once a year, because in the latter case, the pain of paying is felt much more acutely. History also records curious taxes, such as the beard tax introduced by Peter the Great to force men to shave, or the window tax in 17th and 18th century England, which led many houses to be built with sealed walls. These examples show that through taxation, the state can attempt to regulate even the most private aspects of life, and money becomes a mediator in the dialogue or conflict between citizen and authority. In the context of personal development and career growth, money functions not only as a goal, but also as a measure of competence and market demand. A salary is the price the market sets for a person's combination of skills, experience, and time. Yet this price is shaped not only by the objective value of labor, but also by a range of irrational factors. The gender pay gap, where women earn less than men for the same work. The prestige effect of professions, in which financiers and information technology specialists often earn more than teachers or doctors, despite the undeniable social importance of the latter. Negotiating power, and sometimes simple luck. A curious psychological phenomenon is the effect of salary secrecy. In companies where wages are transparent, overall employee satisfaction and productivity are often higher, because transparency is perceived as fairness. Where salaries are hidden, speculation and suspicions of injustice multiply, and motivation declines. On the other hand, discovering that a colleague earns more for what seems like similar work can provoke acute conflict and demoralization. Thus, money here acts as a powerful but very imperfect language spoken by the labor market, and the ability to read and speak this language, for example during salary negotiations, is a critically important skill for financial well-being. At the same time, it is important to remember that the market price of talent is not the same as its true human or social value. An interesting cultural phenomenon is money in a religious context. In virtually all world religions, attitudes toward wealth are ambivalent. On the one hand, it may be viewed as divine blessing for righteousness, especially in Protestantism. On the other, as a dangerous temptation that distracts from the spiritual path. It is easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than for a rich person to enter the kingdom of God, says the Gospel. In Islam, there is zakat, a mandatory tax in favor of the needy, one of the 5 pillars of faith intended to purify wealth. In Buddhism, excessive attachment to material things is considered a source of suffering. At the same time, religious institutions themselves have always been major economic actors, owning land, receiving donations, and engaging in lending at interest, even though usury was long prohibited for believers in Christianity. In medieval Europe, indulgences, the remission of sins in exchange for monetary donations, became one of the triggers of the Reformation. Today we observe how new, secular religions, such as the cult of success, productivity, and self-improvement, also offer their own financial rituals, the purchase of expensive courses, coaching, and equipment for a successful life. Thus, money constantly intersects with the sacred sphere, appearing sometimes as a symbol of sin, sometimes as an instrument of redemption, and sometimes as an object of worship in new secular cults. money also exerts a kind of climatic influence on the individual. Prolonged experience of financial instability or extreme poverty can lead to the formation of a particular mode of thinking that researchers call a scarcity mindset. This is a cognitive burden in which the constant need to solve immediate financial problems depletes mental resources, reducing the capacity for long-term planning, self-control, and balanced decision-making. A person living under conditions of scarcity is forced to constantly put out fires, which often leads to suboptimal but quickly relieving financial strategies, such as high-interest payday loans. This phenomenon helps explain why escaping poverty is so difficult. Poverty itself reshapes psychology, creating a vicious circle. On the other hand, a sudden influx of large sums of money, as in the case of lottery winnings, creates an opposite but equally destructive climate, characterized by disorientation, loss of reference points, and pressure from one's surroundings. The ideal financial weather for personal growth is stability and security, which do not require constant focus on survival, but also do not produce a sense of omnipotence. In such a climate, money ceases to be the dominant topic of inner dialogue, freeing space for other aspects of life: creativity, relationships, and learning. Understanding this climatic effect helps one view personal financial difficulties not as a personal failing, but as an objective condition that requires special strategies for managing attention and resources. When we examine the evolution of money, we see how not only its form changes, but also the very idea of what can serve as currency. In recent decades, the concept of attention as currency has emerged. In a digital age saturated with information, the ability to attract and hold human attention becomes a rare and valuable resource. Corporate advertising budgets are, in essence, a conversion of money into audience attention. Social networks that offer free services sell our attention to advertisers, turning it into their primary source of revenue. This creates a new economy in which the user, by spending time on a platform and generating data, becomes an implicit worker whose unpaid labor, scrolling feeds, creating content, forming connections, is monetized by corporations. Attention here is a raw material that is extracted, refined through analytics, and sold. This model raises complex ethical questions about the boundaries of privacy, behavioral manipulation, and fair compensation. The paradox is that in trying to save money, we often lavishly spend our attention on searching for discounts, comparing prices, and consuming free but advertising-saturated content, without recognizing the true cost of these mental resources. Money is also closely intertwined with the concept of time at a more everyday level, through the rhythm of earning and spending. A salary paid once a month sets a particular life cycle. Relative abundance and major payments such as rent and loans at the beginning of the month, followed by thrift toward the end. This artificial rhythm may not align with natural needs and cash flows, creating periods of stress. The emergence of services that allow access to part of one's wages before payday is an attempt to smooth this dissonance and give people greater control over their financial time. On the other hand, subscription models create a fundamentally different temporal relationship with money. Instead of a one-time major purchase, we agree to small but regular and often automatic charges. This is convenient, but insidious. Numerous small subscriptions form what is known as income leakage syndrome, in which a significant portion of the budget quietly drains away on services we no longer use. Thus, modern money flows increasingly resemble the management of continuous cycles rather than discrete transactions, demanding constant monitoring and awareness so as not to lose control over one's financial time. Let us turn to the phenomenon of money in extreme conditions, such as prisons, camps, or combat zones. In these micro-societies, cut off from the official economy, unique currency systems arise that demonstrate remarkable human ingenuity. In prisons, money may take the form of cigarettes, tea, tubes of tomato paste, or even envelopes, since cash is usually prohibited. The value of these items is entirely conditional, determined by scarcity and the needs of the community. In prisoner of war camps during the Second World War, currency consisted of chocolate, soap, or canned food from Red Cross parcels. Interestingly, such systems often develop their own banks, respected inmates who hold deposits and keep accounts. These spontaneous monetary systems prove that as soon as a need for exchange arises, a human community immediately invents an intermediary, even under the most constrained circumstances. They also show that trust and reputation in such environments matter more than any material form of money. The study of these crisis currencies offers invaluable insight into the essence of money as a social agreement, stripped of the layers of official economic structures. Money also has a distinctive optics, the way we see the world through its lens. Economic thinking teaches us to perceive costs, opportunity costs, and incentives. It is a powerful analytical tool. Yet exaggerating this optics can lead to what is sometimes called economic imperialism, the attempt to assign monetary value to everything, including love, friendship, health, the environment, or cultural heritage. On the one hand, this enables more rational decisions by comparing seemingly incomparable things, such as whether an hour of commuting time is worth saving a certain amount of money. On the other hand, it risks eroding the qualitative richness of life. When we begin calculating the price of an evening with a friend or helping one's parents, we risk impoverishing these relationships by reducing them to dry calculations. The philosopher Michael Sandel, in his book, What Money Can't Buy, rightly warns of the danger of transforming society into a market where there is no room for moral and civic virtues. Thus, financial literacy should include not only the ability to count money, but also the wisdom to know where to stop, where to turn off the economic optics, and allow other value systems, ethical, aesthetic, and emotional, to guide our decisions. A particularly fascinating layer connects money with memory, both collective and individual. Coins and banknotes are material carriers of history. By finding an old coin, we can trace political changes, the smena of rulers, the fall of empires, the unification of states. Collectible banknotes from periods of hyperinflation tell stories of economic catastrophe more vividly than textbooks. But there is also personal, biographical memory. People often keep as talismans their first earned coin, a banknote from a memorable trip, or a monetary souvenir. These objects have no purchasing power, yet they possess immense emotional value, serving as anchors for important memories. In a sense, modern digital transactions lack this material memory. A payment in an application is a fleeting event that leaves no physical trace. Perhaps that is why souvenir and collectible money retains its appeal. It satisfies a need for tactile, tangible history that connects us to the past, while the bulk of financial activity becomes increasingly ephemeral and invisible. Money plays a key role in the ecosystem of innovation, acting as the circulatory system for ideas. Venture capital is a special kind of money designed to finance high-risk projects with potentially extraordinary returns. Venture investors invest not in current assets, but in the future, in a team and an idea. Their decisions are based on intuition, market analysis, and the belief that a small share of successful startups will compensate for losses from many failures. This system shaped the technological landscape of Silicon Valley and gave rise to companies that have changed the world. Yet it also has a darker side. The pursuit of hypergrowth and a rapid initial public offering can distort founders' goals, pushing them to scale at any cost, sometimes at the expense of product quality, ethics, or long-term business sustainability. Venture money is the fuel of innovation, but it can also create overheated bubbles when company valuations lose touch with reality. This dynamic shows how a specific type of money, long-term and tolerant of risk, can shape entire industries and entrepreneurial culture, determining which ideas get a chance at life and which remain on paper. When reflecting on money, we inevitably confront the question of its relationship with freedom. Classical liberal thought views private property and capital as the foundation of personal autonomy. Financial resources allow individuals to make choices and avoid dependence on the goodwill of the state or other people. From this perspective, money is freedom made tangible. Yet there is another perspective, vividly expressed in dystopian visions. Money as an instrument of total control. In a world where every purchase is tracked, where social ratings determine access to credit, and where wealth is concentrated in the hands of a narrow elite, money can become a perfect mechanism of domination. Dystopia imagines a society in which inequality is so extreme that the majority is trapped in debt bondage to corporations or the state, with every financial action monitored and evaluated. Reality, as usual, lies somewhere in between. Money does grant freedom of choice, but it also demands responsibility and creates new forms of dependence on the market, on employers, on exchange rate fluctuations. True financial freedom likely lies not in limitless wealth, but in a level of security and literacy that allows a person to preserve sovereignty over their decisions without becoming a slave, either to need or to the endless pursuit of riches. Anthropologists believe that the ability for complex exchange and division of labor was a key factor that set Homo sapiens apart from other species. Money, as the most universal intermediary of exchange, allowed cooperation to extend beyond small groups of familiar faces, forming the basis of global civilization. It is the glue that bound scattered tribes into trade networks and later into states. Yet this same glue can also be corrosive, eroding traditional bonds based on trust and reciprocity and replacing them with cold calculation. Money is an ambivalent invention, simultaneously the greatest amplifier of human potential and a source of profound conflicts and inequalities. It is neither good nor bad in itself. It is a mirror reflecting our collective values, fears, and ambitions. Let us now consider money as an object of trust, not in the state, but in an algorithm. Decentralized finance is a new paradigm that emerged on blockchain technology and seeks to replace traditional financial intermediaries, such as banks and exchanges, with self-executing computer code, known as smart contracts. In a decentralized finance system, you can lend your crypto assets to a stranger on the other side of the world, knowing that the loan terms, interest, duration, and collateral will be enforced automatically by code without lawyers or notaries. This creates a world of open, transparent, and continuously available financial protocols. However, this utopia of total algorithmic honesty collides with the harsh reality of human nature and imperfect code. Smart contracts are vulnerable to hacking if there are errors in their logic. The anonymity of participants makes accountability for fraud extremely difficult. Moreover, decentralization itself often turns out to be illusory, as key protocols are controlled by small groups of developers or large token holders. Money in the decentralized finance world is no longer just currency, but a programmable asset whose behavior is governed by strict mathematical rules. This is the next step in abstraction. From a physical object to a digital record, and from a digital record to an autonomous agent capable of executing financial operations independently within defined parameters. Money also possesses a kind of gravity, which becomes evident in economic geography. Major financial centers such as New York, London, Tokyo, Hong Kong, and Shanghai attract capital, talent, and companies from around the globe, creating powerful concentrations of wealth and influence. This gravity is driven by network effects. Where there is a lot of money, Infrastructure develops. Lawyers, consultants, technologists. Major deals are made and standards are set. This, in turn, attracts even more money. Thus arise global superstar cities whose economies and real estate prices detach not only from national realities, but even from global averages. The reverse side of this gravity is the financial desert, regions from which capital and young people drain away, leaving aging populations and stagnating economies. Governments try to counter this by creating special economic zones with low taxes or investing in infrastructure in depressed areas. But reversing fundamental economic gravity is extremely difficult. Money, seeking maximum efficiency and profit, naturally concentrates, exposing the tension between the economic logic of agglomeration and the social and political goal of balanced territorial development. An intriguing aspect of money is its role in shaping and breaking habits. Behavioral economists have shown that small but well-designed financial incentives or disincentives can significantly influence everyday behavior. Charging for plastic bags in supermarkets sharply reduces their use. Taxes on sugary drinks lower their consumption. Bonuses for quitting smoking or achieving fitness goals in health applications motivate healthier lifestyles. At the core of this is the principle of nudging, where a subtle change in the choice environment, in this case its monetary cost, gently steers people toward more rational or socially desirable decisions. The danger lies in paternalism, excessive interference in personal choice under the guise of care. Where does reasonable nudging end and manipulation begin? Moreover, such incentives can crowd out intrinsic motivation. If children are paid to read books, they may start reading only for money, losing genuine interest. Thus, money used as a tool for habit formation is a delicate instrument that requires caution and constant ethical reflection. Delving into history, we find striking examples of money being used as a weapon of psychological warfare and propaganda. During the Second World War, Nazi Germany carried out Operation Bernhard, a large-scale counterfeiting of British pound sterling banknotes aimed at collapsing the United Kingdom economy through hyperinflation. The forgeries were produced by prisoners in the Sachsenhausen concentration camp and were of such high quality that even experts at the Bank of England struggled to distinguish them from genuine notes. Although the ultimate goal was not fully achieved, the counterfeit pounds were used to finance intelligence operations and foreign purchases. Conversely, the Allied forces dropped counterfeit local currencies over occupied territories to undermine trust in the money issued by collaborationist regimes. In more peaceful times, countries sometimes use currency policy as a tool of influence, deliberately devaluing their currency to make exports cheaper on global markets and thus exporting unemployment to competitors. These examples show that money on the geopolitical stage is not merely a means of settlement, but a full-fledged weapon whose striking power lies in undermining the very foundation of the financial system: trust. Let us consider money through the lens of its aesthetic and emotional impact beyond the simple design of banknotes. There is an entire artistic movement known as art money, in which artists create unique or limited series of monetary instruments that function as legal tender only within the artistic gesture, yet possess real exchange value as art objects. These works explore the boundaries between value and price, uniqueness and mass production. On the other hand, the ritual destruction of money as an act of protest or art, such as burning banknotes in a performance, carries powerful symbolic weight as it attacks the very sacredness of the monetary fetish. In everyday life, we experience a wide range of emotions associated with physical contact with money, from the pleasure of the crispness of a new banknote to the disgust provoked by dirty, greasy coins. These tactile and emotional reactions are not mere side effects. They are part of a complex psychological mechanism that associates money with cleanliness and contamination, order and chaos, safety, and danger. Cultures in which money is traditionally handed over in envelopes, as in Japan or China, partially seek to neutralize this dirty materiality by wrapping monetary substance in a clean, ritualized shell. Money also has a biological dimension, closely tied to health and medicine. In many countries, access to high-quality healthcare is directly determined by financial means. This creates an ethical dilemma. Can human life and health be evaluated in monetary terms? Health insurance systems are forced to do this every day, using cost-benefit and cost-utility analyses to approve or deny expensive treatments. With the development of biotechnology and genetic engineering, a new reality is emerging in which money can influence not only treatment, but also human enhancement, so-called biohacking, the purchase of elite athletic or cosmetic procedures, and in the future, perhaps even genetic modifications for one's descendants. This opens the door to a new form of biological inequality, where wealth can be converted into better physical traits, longer lifespans, and enhanced cognitive abilities. Even today, there are insurance products whose pricing depends on data from fitness trackers, encouraging healthier lifestyles while simultaneously raising serious questions about the privacy of medical data. In this context, money becomes a tool that mediates access not merely to services, but to fundamental aspects of human existence: health, the body, and potentially biological destiny itself. In the context of education, money functions as an investment in human capital with one of the highest long-term returns. Spending on quality education, courses, and internships pays off many times over through higher earnings across an entire career. Yet here the effect of credit constraints is crucial. Talented but poor students may be unable to obtain higher education simply because they cannot afford it, leading to a loss of talent for society and the reproduction of inequality. Educational loan systems are designed to address this problem by selling future human capital in exchange for money today. At the same time, they can burden young people with overwhelming debt at the very beginning of their lives. Interestingly, alternative models are now emerging, such as income share agreements, in which an investor pays for a student's education in exchange for a percentage of the student's future income over a defined period. This shifts risk from the student to the investor and ties the cost of education to its actual return in the labor market. Such models show how money, when thoughtfully embedded in social institutions, can do more than pay for a service. It can create new, fairer, and more efficient forms of contracts based on sharing future success. Let us now view money as a mirror of family dynamics and a mechanism for transmitting attitudes across generations. Financial flows within families are not merely a shared budget, but a complex language used to communicate power, trust, love, and responsibility. The traditional model in which one partner, often the man, is the provider, while the other, often the woman, manages the household budget, reinforces certain roles that can offer stability, but also create hidden conflict when ideas of fairness diverge. There is also the phenomenon of financial abuse in relationships, where one partner fully controls all monetary flows, depriving the other of access to funds and independent decision-making, which constitutes a form of psychological domination. On the other hand, giving children pocket money is their first experience of financial socialization, where basic attitudes toward money are formed, whether it is something given freely or a resource linked to responsibilities, such as helping at home or doing well in school. Grandparents, when giving money to grandchildren, often try to compensate for a lack of time or to express unspoken love. In this way, the family becomes a mini economy with its own currency of emotional debts and obligations, where actual money is only one, though very significant, means of communication and exchange. Money also has the ability to create alternative realities in the form of virtual economies inside video games. In multiplayer online worlds such as World of Warcraft, EVE Online, or Fortnite, there are their own currencies: gold, interstellar credits, virtual bucks, which players earn, spend, and accumulate. These economies are so complex and large-scale that all the phenomena of the real financial world emerge within them. Inflation, deflation, financial bubbles, labor markets, such as selling services to complete difficult tasks, and even their own financial crises. Valuable in-game items, such as skins or artifacts, are bought and sold for real money on external platforms, creating gray markets with multi-million-dollar turnover. Game developers act as central banks of these universes, regulating the money supply, introducing new items, and fighting inflation. Game economies are unique laboratories in which economic laws can be observed at accelerated speed within a controlled environment. They also demonstrate how easily human consciousness adapts to a new system of values and begins to treat virtual objects with the same seriousness as real assets, blurring the line between play and life. Turning to more everyday, yet no less important aspects, it is worth reflecting on money as a factor that shapes our daily choices under conditions of limited time and attention. The concept of a money diet or mindful spending is analogous to a food diet. It is an attempt to take control of impulsive purchases that bring momentary pleasure but lack long-term value. Just as we learn to distinguish physical hunger from emotional hunger, financial literacy teaches us to distinguish real needs from those imposed by marketing or boredom. Interestingly, the practice of a financial fast, a temporary voluntary refusal of non-essential spending, not only saves money, but also helps reset perception, making it clearer what truly brings satisfaction. At the same time, there is the notion of the cost of decision-making. Constantly thinking about how to save a small amount on every purchase can exhaust mental resources that could be directed toward more productive activities or rest. Sometimes, rational frugality lies in paying a little more for convenience and save time, freeing the mind for more important thoughts. The balance between conscious control and freedom from constant calculation is a subtle art of managing personal resources, where money is only one variable in a complex equation of quality of life. Money plays a crucial role not only in macroeconomic processes, but also in the most intimate spheres of human life, such as family and relationships. Financial conflicts are among the most common causes of divorce and disputes between partners. Often the root of the problem lies not in a lack of money itself, but in the clash of deeply ingrained money scripts learned in one's family of origin. For one partner, money may be associated with freedom and security, making spending anxiety-provoking and encouraging strict saving. For the other, money may be associated with love and attention, turning spending into a way of expressing feelings. When these unconscious attitudes are not discussed openly, they lead to mutual accusations of stinginess or wastefulness. Psychologists note that harmonious management of a family budget is often built not on complete financial merging, but on shared goals and respect for each partner's personal financial autonomy. Interestingly, the influence of money on relationships can even be observed at a biological level. Research shows that financial stress increases levels of cortisol, the stress hormone, which suppresses emotional bonding and empathy, making partners more irritable and withdrawn. Conversely, joint planning of major purchases or savings activates brain regions associated with cooperation and reward, strengthening a sense of teamwork. Thus, money in relationships is not merely a tool, but a powerful catalyst that can either expose hidden contradictions or become the cement for building a shared future, if partners are willing to talk about it openly and without fear. Art and literature have always been sensitive barometers of society's attitude toward money. From the miserly Plyushkin in Gogol's works and the profit-driven Gobseck in Balzac to the tragic cult of the dollar in The Great Gatsby by Fitzgerald, writers have explored the destructive and deforming power of wealth. At the same time, the absence of money, poverty as depicted, for example, in the novels of Dickens, appears as a force that cripples human souls and condemns them to hopelessness. In painting, money is rarely depicted directly, but its presence is felt in details: the jewelry and portraits of the nobility, the symbolic attributes of trade in Dutch still lifes, the contrast between luxury and poverty in realist art. In contemporary art, money itself has become a medium, from sculptures assembled out of coins to performances in which artists burn or destroy banknotes, questioning the very nature of value. Popular culture, in turn, often romanticizes both ascetic life, detached from material goods, and glamorous, demonstrative consumption, creating a confusing and contradictory cultural image of wealth. These artistic reflections are important because they do not merely describe economic relationships, but explore existential questions. What makes life fulfilling? How the material relates to the spiritual, and where the line lies beyond which money ceases to be a means and becomes an end in itself, displacing human connection and meaning. This collective belief, sustained by state institutions, creates a powerful yet invisible force field around money. Yet if we look more closely, we discover that this belief also has very physical, tactile roots. The texture of banknote paper, for example, is not just paper. It is produced in specialized mills, often using cotton or linen fibers, which give banknotes their distinctive durability and slight roughness. Fine-colored fibers or polymer threads are sometimes added to the paper pulp, visible only when held up to the light. All of these measures are not only protection against counterfeiting, but also a way to subconsciously signal to our brains through touch that this object is special, that it differs from everything ordinary. This is why counterfeits, even well-printed ones, are often recognized intuitively. They rustle wrong or feel too smooth. Coins, meanwhile, literally carry the weight of history. Ancient coins were struck by hand. A blank was placed between two dies and struck from above with a hammer. The uneven force of the blow and slight shifts of the dies made each coin unique. And today, numismatists study these irregularities to determine authenticity and even to reconstruct the technological processes of ancient mints. With the invention of the screw press in the 15th and 16th centuries, coins became more standardized, and their edges began to bear special inscriptions or ridges to prevent the common practice of clipping precious metal from the rims. Thus, every physical attribute of money, from the sound of a falling coin to the crisp crackle of a new banknote, is the result of a long evolution shaped by the struggle between creators and counterfeiters, between trust and deception. This trust in the monetary sign as a symbol of value sometimes took astonishing forms, when money itself became an object of art or a carrier of complex messages. In medieval Europe, coins served as one of the primary tools of propaganda. They bore portraits of rulers, coats of arms, mottos, and even brief political statements. By receiving a coin, a person not only performed an economic action, but literally held the image of their sovereign in their palm, reinforcing loyalty in an era when other media were unavailable. In some cultures, coins were pierced or notched to check whether they were hollow or made of cheaper alloys. These test cuts could, in turn, become elements of folk creativity. Pierced coins were used as jewelry, amulets, or even as a kind of token. In China during the Han Dynasty, so-called spade coins and knife coins were widespread, bronze castings shaped like agricultural tools. They served as reminders that wealth ultimately comes from labor on the land. In more recent history, during periods of economic crisis, local currencies appeared, known as emergency money. These were substitute monetary instruments issued by cities, factories, or even restaurants to sustain local circulation when official money was scarce. They could be made of tin, porcelain, silk, or cardboard, and often displayed remarkable artistic variety, becoming collectible objects as soon as the crisis ended. In this way, money, while being a universal tool, has always retained the ability to reflect the spirit of its time, local characteristics, and even the sense of humor of its creators. Money is closely intertwined with the concept of luck and chance, as reflected in folklore and modern practices. The widespread existence of lotteries, despite the statistically negligible chances of winning, points to a deep human need for a narrative of sudden, miraculous transformation of fate. A lottery ticket is, in essence, materialized hope, a small payment for the right to dream for a few days. In different cultures, there are rituals for attracting money, from spells performed under a waxing moon to placing specific talismans in one's wallet. These actions, seemingly irrational, perform an important psychotherapeutic function. They reduce anxiety about financial uncertainty and give a sense of at least minimal control over fortune. In the business world, a similar role is often played by rituals such as the first symbolic sale or faith in a lucky tie for important negotiations. Money, as the quintessence of market unpredictability, generates an entire layer of magical thinking around itself, serving as a compensatory mechanism of the psyche when facing the blind forces of the economy. It is a reminder that no matter how much we try to rationalize finance, an element of irrational belief and hope will always pulse at its core. Viewing money through an ecological lens reveals a paradox. An instrument created to facilitate the exchange of values becomes a cause of the destruction of fundamental natural values. Mining resources for technology production, deforestation for agriculture, pollution of oceans with plastic. All of this is driven by monetary flows aimed at profit extraction. Yet the same money also becomes the primary tool for saving ecosystems. Through mechanisms such as green bonds, carbon credits, and payments for ecosystem services, where one country pays another to preserve forests that absorb carbon dioxide, the financial system attempts to redirect capital toward planetary protection. The concept of natural capital emerges, an effort to express in monetary terms the services nature provides humanity for free, such as pollination, water purification, and climate regulation, in order to include them in economic calculations. This is a controversial but potentially powerful idea. If destroying a forest costs a company more than preserving it, business gains a financial incentive to protect nature. In this way, money, once part of the problem, attempts to become part of the solution, creating a new, still fragile, financial ecosystem intended to safeguard the biological one. In the field of law, money functions not only as the subject of disputes, but also as a universal equivalent of damage and punishment. Fines, compensation for moral harm, child support, and penalties are all ways of translating social, physical, or emotional losses into monetary form. This translation inevitably simplifies and coarsens reality, since no sum can truly measure the loss of health or years of life. But it is necessary for the functioning of a legal system that requires measurable criteria. Interestingly, the size of such amounts is deeply shaped by culture. Compensation awarded in courts in the United States, where lawsuits involving millions of dollars are common, is incomparable with that in European countries with more socially oriented legal frameworks. Moreover, the mere ability to afford the best lawyers significantly affects legal outcomes, calling into question the ideal of equal justice. Here, money becomes not only a measure of justice, but also a tool that can distort it, effectively creating two parallel legal systems, one for the rich and one for the poor. This shows that once introduced into the legal sphere, money is not neutral. It can embody principles of restitution and accountability, yet also undermine the very foundations of fairness. Already today, implantable microchips used for contactless payments, pioneered by some companies in Sweden, raise the question of whether money will become part of our bodies. If so, what will happen to concepts of ownership and privacy? Could a person be hacked in the same way a bank card can be hacked? Another frontier is the use of biometric data, such as vein patterns in the palm, gait, or typing dynamics, not only for authentication, but also for scoring, assessing creditworthiness. Your body and behavior become either an asset or a liability. In a more distant future, with the development of neural interfaces, the possibility may arise of executing transactions directly through thought, where a financial intention is instantly converted into a transfer. This would finally turn money into a purely mental construct, erasing the last remnants of its materiality. Such a future promises extraordinary convenience, but also monstrous risks. From new forms of cybercrime targeting the brain to total control over thoughts and desires, if financial motives are embedded directly into neural circuits. Money, having begun its journey as an external intermediary in exchange, may ultimately become an integral part of our biology and consciousness, completing a centuries-long evolution from object to symbol, from symbol to data, and from data to direct neural command. This journey reflects our own drive toward complete fusion with the tools we create, the consequences of which we are only beginning to comprehend. Good night.